Welcome to the Rockin Rich Lynch on the Radio Show. I'm your host, Rockin Rich Lynch, inviting you to join me as we discover great new music by bands and artists from around the world. With interviews, music news and reviews, great prizes, and a whole lot more. Visit us online today at soundpress.net for great music promotion and publicity. Hi, this is Rockin Rich Lynch, and you're listening to the very best of Rockin Rich Lynch on the radio. We recently moved our operations from the New York, New Jersey market to Nashville, Tennessee, and we are now looking for a production and broadcast partner in the region to take the radio show to new heights. If you're a band, musician, solo act, or represent a musical project in any genre, please visit soundpress.net and our new site, musiccitynashville.net, to learn how we can help get your message to the world. Now, please enjoy this great interview from our archives. Here we are today on the Quebec Music Magazine radio program. Today on the show, from thedreamweaver.com, now back with two great albums, Gary Wright. Mr. Gary Wright, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rich.
And I want to say I'm really excited to talk to you because there's so many places that we could go with this today, so I'm excited to see exactly what transpires, because you have a most unique perspective on the music industry, Gary, and you're a national treasure as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I wasn't exactly sure where to start, but you got Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi, Frank Sinatra, the Smithereens, Southside Johnny, and that sounds like you're from New Jersey. Yeah, I mean, you'd be a musician from New Jersey, and you are a member of that club. What's the best thing about being from Jersey?
I thought New Jersey was a great place to grow up in. I mean, New Jersey always gets a bad rap, because people say, they take that drive from Newark Airport into Manhattan, they think that's what New Jersey is. But it's a great place. I grew up in the northern part, right about 15 minutes north of the George Washington Bridge, and it was beautiful woods and little streams around and lakes. It was a very, very pretty place to grow up.
Yeah, and we're basically from the same region. I'm also from North Jersey myself, and there's a lot of interesting things going on with that. As far as earlier in the year, we got to see Al Di Meola play his high school, 1972 graduate. I guess he was listening to Spooky Tooth around that time.
Yeah.
Of Bergenfield High School.
Oh, wow, okay. That's where Al went to school?
Yes, and he graduated in 72, and he just went back for the first time earlier in the year to do a musical nurturing benefit show for the community and the musicians in his high school. First time he ever did that. Have you ever considered, or have you ever played your high school?
I haven't, no. No, it would be Tenafly High School.
So they'd have to get you on the horn.
They'd have to get me on the horn, yeah.
And next time you're in...
Well, if you know anybody there, tell them they can contact me.
Yeah, that's a cool... there's so much good things going on as far as music is concerned.
Oh, and I think it's good because I think especially young, aspiring artists, who want to be musicians and stuff, it's always good for them to listen to somebody who's been there and done that, and I think it's good. It's something in addition to the playing part of it or the concert performing part. There's a lot of information that I could give them.
You could do a seminar.
Yeah.
So we are talking to Gary Wright, the world famous musician, and we're gonna delve into this. We're talking about where I'm from right now, New Jersey, where Gary hails from originally, right off the bat. But to get the whole scoop, go over to thedreamweaver.com. You'll find out that Gary's back with two releases right now, Waiting to Catch the Light and Light of a Million Suns. One is a new age instrumental thing, and the other thing is more of an EP of your more rock and pop, vocal songs. Available now, and I know you're even doing more stuff. I have a friend who is a longtime fan of Spooky Tooth. He's a little older than I, because going way back, I was like, I wanted to tell the people that Gary has been involved with many of the most famous songs in rock and roll history. And Gary, the first song that I ever really remember even touching me or hearing me as like a toddler was Harry Nilsson's "Without You."
Oh yeah, that's a lot of people say that. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was part of an awakening. As a 4-year-old, the music that was a very sad song, and you played on that.
Yes, I did. I played piano on it.
So how did it feel being a part of that song?
That was great. I mean, Harry, I think I met Harry through my affiliation with George Harrison, because Harry knew George and Ringo, and I got the call, to come down to the session and play. I played on that and a couple of the other tracks from that album, too. And I can't remember whether the call came from Harry's people or it was Richard Perry, the producer, but anyway, it was a lot of fun, and it was a beautiful song, and he, of course, has a great voice. And we wound up becoming friends, and as a matter of fact, a little bit of trivia, he bought the apartment that I used to live in London, and I think Ringo had a decorating company at the time, and they decorated it up, and, it's kind of a cool pad, a crash pad.
Yeah, well, we are going to get into a little bit more talking about your work with Ringo and George, because as I said at the beginning, there's so many ways we can go with this, Gary. Because, and I did say I wasn't jesting. A national treasure. You're a person with the perspective from the music industry. I mean, you've worked and recorded with two Beatles, so you've seen that from that point of view. You've had a little insight into that, and you were just there in the. From the 60s with Spooky Tooth, in the 70s, the whole thing, how the churning of the music industry worked, and today you're an executive running your own label, so you have insight into that whole capacity that hopefully we'll be able to get to a little bit of.
Right.
But I would say my friend Ken was a little bit older than me. He was really cued into Spooky Tooth when you guys were doing your thing back in late 60s, early 70s, and he's also a big fan of the band, the Straubs, and he asked me to ask you that he knows that John Hawken is a keyboard player for the Straubs right now, and he played with Spooky Tooth, and he lives in New Jersey. Do you guys know each other?
What's his name again?
I think John Hawken.
The name sounds very familiar. Yeah, I think I remember him.
So there's your answer, Ken. You guys don't. There's not like a class reunion every year where all the people get together or anything like that.
Right. No.
But there is a big Spooky Tooth reunion happening for Island Records' 50th anniversary this year. That'll get you back together with your partner in Spooky Tooth, and you guys aren't necessarily reforming the original band, but things are happening for you. It's amazing.
It's really a cool thing. We're going over there. We did a tour in February of 2008. We did about 13 shows in Germany, and we had great response. It was sold out, and people really loved it. And so we got a call that Island was doing this 50th anniversary, and they're going to have U2 and Amy Winehouse, the Wailers, Jimmy Cliff, Joe Cocker. Who else knows? Surprise guest is going to show up, and Spooky Tooth, and it's going to be a week. I think it's going to go over the course of a week at the Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. We're performing on the 29th, and then we're going to Germany. We're doing another 6 festivals and shows there. Yeah,
that's perfect. Now, has Spooky Tooth been playing together? Because you guys disbanded in about mid-70, 74. Have you guys got back together again? And since then, I mean, I know there was another run in the mid-2000s.
We got together to do a couple of shows in 2004, and we filmed it, and we released a DVD called Nomad Poets a couple of years ago, and then we went back and toured in 2008, and we'll be back again this summer, and probably the fall as well. We have an offer to do another tour.
Any talk of recording? We've
been talking about it, and there's a good chance we might.
Yeah, that would be really cool, because to get ready for this interview, Gary, I was checking out a lot of clips on YouTube, things like that. Was really taking in the old Spooky Tooth, and that was a band I kind of missed out on, but I did not miss out on the music of Gary Wright, because Dreamweaver and Love Is Alive, they both peaked at number 2 in 1976. You were all over the map back then. That must have been a good time for you.
Oh, that was a very exciting time.
Now, the Dream Theater album was said to be one of the first albums that was an all keyboard, effort, maybe minus some drums, but a synthesizer is a really big part of what you do. Can you talk a little bit about approaching the Dream Theater record?
Well, what I did is, I had been working with Spooky Tooth, and in the last incarnation of Spooky Tooth, Mick Jones was playing guitar, and he went on to form Foreigner. And after I left the band in 1974, I started to write because I just got a deal through my manager, D. Anthony, at the time, with Warner Brothers. And as I was writing the songs, I was in New Jersey, actually, in Alpine, New Jersey, where most of that album was written.
Huh.
And I was, I had all my equipment that I had used in the last days of Spooky Tooth, which included a mini Moog, a clavinet, and an organ, and a Rhodes piano. And I was writing the songs using all those instruments and a little rhythm machine, too, a Univox rhythm machine. And they started to sound... Oh, you're on the wrong line. And they started to sound really full and rich, and I thought, I really don't need guitars. And so I decided to actually do the whole album just using keyboards. I thought, why not? If it sounds really good. But I didn't think of it that it was going to be a groundbreaking thing. It was just kind of, to me, it was a very natural thing to do. And then when it got released and Dreamweaver started to get played all over the radio, and people were actually talking to me about the first, all-keyboard album, and I thought, well, actually, it worked. It was a great kind of like marketing tool, so to speak, for that album.
Yeah, well, it set you apart from the rest of the pack, too, because there was a ton of... I mean, there's always a ton of music being made, but in the 70s particularly, there was a ton of music being made.
Yes.
And, I don't think I paid enough homage to that song, but, Dreamweaver was one of those tracks that, sometimes you'd come home at 2 in the morning and it would be playing, and it would be like one of the late night, it was always on FM radio all the time, all day long, but, in particularly, they used to like to play it to send you off to sleep sometime.
Yeah. I still get emails of people that say that, that it helps them through bad times and stuff like that, which is a wonderful thing, because I think that's the most important thing about being an artist, is to be able to help people with your music. Yeah,
well, during that time, Gary, you and that's what we're all about here too. We love to hear stories of people being, music has an incredible power that way. And you did mention Alpine. Did you ever visit the tower up there in Alpine back in?
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, we used to go up there all the time.
Yeah, my wife.
And I think it was in our 8th grade. We made a movie, of like a Frankenstein movie as for a class project, and we filmed it in that tower.
So you didn't record Dreamweaver in the tower?
No.
Because that would be...
Now they've changed it all. It used to be this big estate and these quaint little cottages all around. Now it's all these big homes.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can even get in there anymore to visit it. But yeah, my wife actually hails from Bergenfield and used to drag me up there on occasion.
Yeah.
When we were dating. So very cool. We are talking with Gary Wright. The Dreamweaver.com is the website. Gary, we're talking everything that the man has done from the 60s to today. 2 current releases out right now, waiting to catch the light. Light of a Million Suns. I know you're working on another full-length solo record coming out soon, hopefully. Gary Wright. Gary, thanks for... You got a few more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess, we were talking about the keyboards, and in effect, you actually pioneered a lot of that. You were the first to start wearing the mini Moog keyboards around your neck while playing.
Right, exactly.
And no sooner than in the 1980s did you see, on MTV, all the pop new wave synth bands were, conducting themselves in much the same way.
Yeah, that's right.
So did you pave the way for that?
Oh, I think so. I think that was, I worked very closely with all those synthesizer companies, Moog and Oberheim, and really, I think I did pave a lot of the groundwork for that. I mean, people picked up the ball and kind of ran with it. So I think that was a positive thing that happened in music.
Well,
I think what it did, it just opened the horizons up to people to see, what kind of sounds were possible using synthesizers, and it was a good thing. And
to that point, up until that point, people weren't necessarily used to seeing somebody with a full-length keyboard playing it like a guitar or whatever you're playing. You're playing it like a keyboard, the guitar.
Right, and I think it liberated a lot of frustrated keyboard players who always had to be stuck behind a whole stack of keyboards and standing still, and now they could go out in front of the stage like a guitar player. So that was the fun part about it.
You were on A&M, right? In
my earlier albums, yeah. And then I went to Warner Brothers.
Was Dreamweaver on Warner Brothers?
Yes.
Okay, so well, you've run the gamut from all the labels. You've seen it all. Back in the day, you were the artist, and the record company was responsible for selling pretty much 8 tracks in vinyl. Today, we have the digital format, which is something else, which I'd like to get into a little bit more. But I did just see on YouTube today your band Wonder Wheel.
Oh yeah.
Doing a song called Two-Faced Man. You had mentioned Mick Jones, so that being in Spooky Tooth, so that's where Mick went from Spooky Tooth into Wonder Wheel to Found Foreigner. Now, you did a song on the Dick Cavett show. Was there any other work associated with the Wonder Wheel band?
No, we did an album. It never got released. I'm still trying to get it released, speaking to the people at the record company. But that was it. We just did one album, and then the band disbanded.
Did George appear on that album?
George played on that album. Yes, he did. He played on at least one track. I think it was 1 or 2 tracks he played on that album. And of course, he played on the Dick Cavett show. He invited me to come on and be his guest. Yeah,
I saw that. That would George had the spot and invited, and it ended up being the Wonder Wheel band, is what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Where did the name come from, Wonder Wheel?
I just thought it up. It was just one of the names that I came up with. There was no specific, reference to anything. Just taking 2 words and putting them together.
Because a lot of times, Gary, not all the time, but a lot of times, one of my closing questions, because we are a UFO-themed, music-loving website, I asked some artists, if you've ever seen a UFO, because that name sort of alludes to what people would say a UFO have been over the years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Have you ever seen one?
A UFO? Not that I know of. No, I've never actually remember seeing a UFO anywhere.
Because from what I read about like the Eastern religions, a lot of times in their text, there's a lot more talk of flying vehicles from the past. I don't know if you've come across any of that in your study of the Eastern mysticisms, but that we might as well get us into that. You got into a little of that. I guess philosophy and theology through your association with George Harrison. And Gary Wright at thedreamweaver.com has had an association with George and Ringo. Who you were friends with George first, right?
Yes, I was.
And
I met George from having played on his first album, All Things Must Pass, and then we became friends during the course of that. And he invited me then to play on the rest of his albums, and we became close friends and traveled to India together. And he was actually my spiritual mentor. He actually turned me on and introduced me to Eastern philosophy.
And that stayed with you through this day, right?
Yes, it very much has. It's kind of like it's kind of like really the kind of the cushion that my life has rested on, because it was such a positive thing, and it teaches you how not to become wrapped up in like the circumstances that happen in life that freak people out, and normally people become alcoholics or drug addicts, in the music business. And it was a blessing that I found this at such an early age in my life.
Well, as you mentioned, All Things Must Pass was another one of those records with many songs that people would be familiar with that Gary was a part of. A very cool career for you. As far as the the Eastern religion, I think I just got finished reading. You ever read the Chariot of the Gods series?
No, I didn't.
It's a guy who claims that, or tries to make the case that UFOs visited us in the past, and they were the gods who imparted a lot of knowledge, and a lot of the Eastern text, talk of flying machines. You ever see that in any of your studies?
I've heard of certain things like that, and I don't. It's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility to think that at different times that we were visited by aliens from other civilizations, and other planets. I mean, if you think how vast the universe is and how it's gone on for millions and millions of years, there's why not,
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel now. The universe, like you just said, is just so mind-bogglingly huge that to think that we're the only ones. And it sounds trite and cliche to say that, but it is a fact that, I don't know, if you get a chance to check out Google Earth and switch to space mode, you can take a tour of all the known galaxies, at least 100 million of them.
Oh, yeah. Rich, I'm going to pick up another phone. Can I hold on for a second?
Yes, Gary.
Rich?
Yes, Gary.
Hi. Okay.
So we're back with Gary Wright. We're talking about New Jersey, working with the Beatles, his work with Spooky Tooth, the solo career. Just got a little sidetracked from UFOs, which is my fault. I apologize for about that. Let's go back.
No, not at all. I didn't mean to cut you off in any way. It's just I think it's a fascinating subject, and I think that actually that it's really, it's something that's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I think a lot of rock stars have had encounters. There was a book called Alien Rock. We interviewed the author, and that's kind of why I asked the question, because every now and then I'll get a yes, and I can cue him in, and somebody else might be featured in version 2, which will be coming out soon. So I mean, there's it's tongue in cheek, but I'm definitely into it, as well. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in a life, and we're living in interesting times, and there's a lot of stuff, but you don't get to ask famous rock musicians things like that too often. So I take the opportunity when I can get it. Now, back to the '80s and the MTV era. I think you were played on MTV? Did that impact your career at all? Did that help you out in any way?
I think when I released that single, "Really Want to Know You," which did really well for me, we had a video and then it was out on MTV, and it got a lot of exposure. And I think video actually ruined the music business because I think music is really more of an imaginary experience where you close your eyes and drift away, and you let your imagination create the images. When you see, a lot of times it worked against artists when all of a sudden you'd have this great song in your mind, and then you saw the artist and they weren't that great live, and it kind of ruined the whole thing. I'm not saying that that's the case in every video that was made, but what videos did to the music business is that they became so expensive to make that all of a sudden the money that used to go into radio promotion and the other things, tour support and those venues that would help promote an artist's career, was eaten up by video budgets. So it kind of shifted the whole emphasis of the music business, and in many ways a lot of people think that it ruined it.
Yeah, I think, I agree with you to an extent. It's just a lot of times when I talk to a lot of people who had songs out in the 80s and things like that, and for a small group of people for a period of time, it did serve to at least etch into the memories of a lot of people, aspects of, certain bands. A lot of bands had careers made because they were on there. But it's funny, or it's telling at least, that there isn't really a 24-hour music station that has the impact that MTV did. Of course, there's thousands of other places for people to go to now to find content, be it video or audio or immersive. So things have changed. But I agree with you, Gary, that it had its run, but it's not there anymore. Which I did have Billy Squier on the show a few years back in 2006, and I know he had some feelings about that. Did you work with Billy this time on
I
the
worked
Ringo?
with Billy just this past summer. We were both together in the Ringo Starr's All-Star Band.
Yeah, so there's the other guy you worked with. You also recorded with Ringo on Ringo's first solo record. Another one of the songs I was talking about before. I got to find it.
It don't come easy.
See? You just made it easy for me.
Yeah, Don't Come Easy, and then I played on Back Off Boogaloo as well.
Yeah, I was another song that I loved, growing up, and just was there for me, as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, listening to music and falling in love with everything about it. So you worked with Ringo. How did you enjoy the experience on the All-Star Tour?
Oh, it was fabulous. Ringo's just a prince of a person, a wonderful human being, very caring, just a great, his message is peace and love, and it's kind of like what the Beatles talked about all the time, but he brings it out, and he does it at all his shows, and he's a great person, a great drummer, a wonderful musician, a wonderful person to work with. I can't just say enough great things about him.
And you got to play Dreamweaver every night for the fans? So you got to play your tracks Dreamweaver every night?
I got to play Dreamweaver and Love Is Alive every night, yeah. And it was really a thrill. The first time we rehearsed Dreamweaver, I turned around and then I saw Ringo playing drums. I thought that was the coolest thing.
There you go. See, it's all coming full circle for you, too.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, I appreciate you talking to me today. The new stuff that you have out, and you're working on a new solo record?
Yes.
And do you think we'll see that in the near future?
Hopefully I'm trying to get it out by the fall. I've got about 6 tracks I've laid down. I've got 4 more to record. So all the songs have been written. So it's probably one of the best albums I've done. It's very kind of like R&B-ish, like the Dreamweaver album was.
Yeah, I'd be interested in checking that out when the time comes, because there's a lot of people putting out their best stuff nowadays. Now, Gary, you've worked with a lot of people like Steve Winwood, David Crosby. You've been on the same stage as the Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix. You've worked with Ringo and George Harrison. Is there anyone alive or deceased that you wish you had met or would like to meet?
That's it's hard to say. Right off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody. I can't think of anybody right now. But I wish I do. There is something. John Lennon had asked me to play on Imagine, and unfortunately I was on tour with Spooky Tooth at the time, and I couldn't do it. But that's really the only regret I had, I had not played on that album, because that would have been great.
So you didn't meet John besides...
I did meet him a couple of times, but I never actually had the opportunity to play on his songs.
Well, that's awesome. TheDreamweaver.com is the website. I apologize for the connection.
No problem.
Losing out right there, but maybe we can talk again in the future, because I have about 2 pages we didn't even get to.
Sure.
But I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, Gary. Gary Wright, TheDreamweaver.com. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to the Rockin' Rich Lynch on the Radio Show, part of the SoundPress.net radio network. Remember, if you're a band or artist looking for promotion, or if you'd like to sponsor this show or add this program to your station, please get in touch with us today at SoundPress.net.